I don't think people have seen this side of Afghanistan and this side of Afghan women. I think it's quite an inspiring film, especially for women and girls, to see what, it's not just one woman who ran for president, it's the women, the supporting women in the film, what they're capable of and how much they're up against, and in spite of that, how successful they are.
از روزهایی که به صفت دکتر طب در خدمت شما قرار گرفتم، از نگرانی ها و امیدها و رویاهایتان ما و شما پیشرفت های قابل ملاحظه را نصیب شده ایم. علت عمده آن قاطعیت، خستگی ناپذیری و عشق شما خواهران به وطن و سعادت آن بوده است. برای آنکه یک بار دیگر افغانستان آزاد، آرام و صلح‌آمیز داشته باشیم، آگاهی وسیع یافتم.
In 2002, like shortly after 9/11, actually, I got a research grant from ITVS, a small grant, and I wanted to do a film about Afghan women activists. And turns out I went to Afghanistan in June of 2002 and met hundreds of women that I could have done a film on. And I still at that point was going to do a film about activists, but then I was there during this election, just 6 months after the Taliban fell, and there was this woman running for president, you know, just one woman against another man and one other man. And my camera basically made a swish pan to her and just didn't move for 4 years. So.
The image United States people has from Afghan women, that they went through lots of tragedies, a lot of disasters, a very hardship time, and suffered a lot, and they are right.
It was important to me from the beginning that this be a film that was appropriate to be shown in Afghanistan, because I think when you're doing advocacy films or anything with a social issue, you can easily preach to the choir. But to be able to show it to the people that really would benefit the most, that's really, really rewarding. And obviously there's a potential danger to Massouda if this film gets out, but I really have faith in the Afghan people that they're very tolerant and that they'll love this film. And she wants to show it, so I have to go with her wishes. And I would like to show it via mobile cinemas all over Afghanistan, and to show young Afghan girls what older Afghan women are doing and what they're capable of. So.
بسیار تشکر از سوال برادرم. ما به صفت یک تبع با استفاده از حقی که برای هر شهروند و تبع در قانون اساسی جدید افغانستان داده شد و در قانون انتخابات داده شد و با استفاده از جو سیاسی موجوده در کشور و به اساس تقاضای مردم افغانستان، مردان، زنان، جوانان از گوشه‌های مختلف افغانستان، از اقوام مختلف افغانستان، از ولایات مختلف و سمت‌های مختلف خود کاندیدای مقام ریاست جمهوری افغانستان نمودیم.
I guess as an American woman in Afghanistan, you're almost afforded sort of a neutral status as far as your gender, because they know you're a Westerner. They can see by your dress, even if you try to put a scarf on, they can see you're a Westerner. So I was able to get into a mosque and actually interview a imam. I was able to film somebody doing the call to prayer. So we really didn't have too many difficulties with that. It's hard to say how the Afghan women feel when you're not treated quite the same way. Although my Afghan co-producer, who briefly worked in Karzai's press office, she's American, she's Afghan, she speaks the language, but every single day she would go to work for Karzai's office. She'd come to the door in a burqa, and they would act like they didn't know who she was. They'd act like she was a beggar woman who was coming to the door, and here she's a professional with MBA. So she was Afghan American, so she was treated differently. And even in the film, you can see Karzai she's asking a question of him. She's my co-producer. And she worked for him, and he says, "We don't need to do any more of that, ma'am." He doesn't even call her by name. So
any kind of violence right now is associated with elections. Before, a couple weeks before, as we are now, about 2.5, 3 weeks before the elections, that violence is going to increase, especially in provinces where there are more Taliban, more remnants of the Taliban. Zabul is one of those provinces. We just got some breaking news that there might have been some more people killed in Zabul province. The young people of Zabul have chosen Massouda as their candidate. The young people have decided that she is kind of their representative, and it's very interesting because it's a conservative province. It's where more of the Taliban quote-unquote activity has been happening, and it's conservative, and usually conservative Muslims in Afghanistan do not consider women to be able to run for president, so they think it's against Islamic law.
You know, Afghans didn't hate Americans when we you know, blew the Taliban away. They were pretty happy. I mean, the Taliban, it wasn't fun under the Taliban, even for men. They had to have their beards a certain length, and they were also, you know, subjugated under the Taliban. So initially they were quite hopeful, and they heard promises of all this money and reconstruction and rebuilding the educational system, et cetera, and a lot of that money just didn't happen, and a lot of the reconstruction didn't happen. So yeah, I think we really failed them, and you can see it now with the Taliban resurgence, the fundamentalism in the South, and it's gaining momentum again. And you know, if you don't follow through with not only the security, it's not so much putting soldiers in there, but building up the people and, you know, the educational system, then, you know, there's no sustainability for democracy.
People who make changes in the world, they were not afraid. Like President Roosevelt brought many changes and served a lot in the United States. And he's one of the father of United States, yeah, that built this United States. And what he was saying was that there is nothing to fear about it, only fear itself. And he was right. So you cannot be fearful and do something great.
Yeah, I mean, I think we messed up as a country, but I think, you know, there are activist groups that can do a lot in Afghanistan, and it's really just bringing the help to the people who need it most. Just recently, the Time magazine had an article about girls' education in Afghanistan, how there are still schools being burned, how there are still so many thousands of girls that aren't going to school. Well, that just takes, yeah, it takes money, but it just takes initiative and organizations to get in there and just don't take no for an answer, and don't, you know, allow bureaucracy to get in the way. And it's kind of like in that scene in Charlie Wilson's War, where they get to the education, they're like, oh, $1 million for that after they've given billions for the war. Well, you gotta reverse your thinking, you know, flip it and put all the money into the education and the reconstruction. And, you know, yes, security is necessary, but it's really proportionally inadequate right now.
هنوز به اونجا هست کارهای خودم منظم این دم مرکز کلکان هست، ما اونجا میرسیم. سبا نونی ما اونجا
همگی خوب هستن؟
سلام
کل مردم خوب هستن؟ سلامت
نشان دادیم که ما میتونیم که با مجلس کبیری مکنی یا لوی جرگه.
After emergency law jirga, the people started coming to me and asking me to be a candidate.
دیگرها لشکرها دارن و سازمان ها دارن و انجمن ها دارن و نشریه ها دارن و پیسه ها دارن. ما بسیار خوش بودیم که استاد بودیم در فاکولته بیولوژی کابل مسئله نداشته باشیم.
یا جیب شخصی خود حتی به مردم کمک کردن، تنها که از بیت المال نگرفته، از جیب شخصی.
هیچ گوش نمیماندن به قدرت برسانن. مملکت از جنجال بیغم میشه. دیگه زن خود جنگ نمیکنه مادر، به هیچ وجه، به هیچ قیمتی حاضر نمیشه. سر خودش بره قطره خون مردم نمیخواد بریزه به هیچ وجه. براتون معلوم است مادر چی رقم است دیگه. Whoever take.
Well, the reception here has been wonderful. The people who come to see the film are really interested and really engaged, and I've gotten great feedback, and people seem to be very inspired by her and her story, by Massouda Jalal. I never really set out. Well, I do commercial television. I do broadcast documentaries for cable television, Discovery, and National Geographic, and that. So I sort of have an internal meter of what's viewable, what's appropriate for an audience, how to get, how to capture them, what's dramatic and all that. But I never really went into it with that in mind. It was more just there has to be a story and it has to be interesting. As far as the commercial viability of it, I think it's very commercial. I think it's going to be sort of more of a sleeper, sort of like her campaign, because it's a subtle film, and it's just something that people really didn't know about at the time, and so I'm hoping that it'll gain momentum slowly. And even though I'm wearing a shirt that says "Aspiring Sellout," I don't really mean that. A lot of times, like over the last 5 years, I've just wanted to quit, and but sort of, I have this inspiring character, so I can't just leave her in the dust, I want people to know about her, so I couldn't give it up. But I would say to some other indie filmmakers that, stick with it. Finish your film at all costs, and it's going to pay off. Maybe not monetarily initially or even in the end, but it's going to make a difference, because the more venues you get your film out to, the more change is possible. So. And she's created the Jalal Foundation, which is a resource bank for her to do her projects. Like she sent me umpteen proposals for great projects, like girls sports project, women and girls health initiative, and really I would like to put her out there so that she'll be funded to do the things she wants to do, because she's got the potential of doing some great things.
I'm an LA-based director and cinematographer, and I feel like I'm part of the media, and I have a responsibility as part of the media that I can't ignore. And I mean, the commercial-based media are all about breaking news. What's happening now? What can be packaged into a 30-second soundbite? Coverage of wars is about is about shock and awe. It's about what exploded or who died. It's not about there's really not a lot of exploration of what happens when the news. I mean, we set out with this movie. We set out to answer the question: what happens after the bombs stop falling? What happens when the news cameras turn away?
Szerbet shqiptarët Mitrovic kanë jetuar fort kur një të keqes kena pas mes veti.
My co-director Laura Bialis and I don't have any personal kind of ethnic connection to Kosovo. A lot of people ask, "Oh, you must be Serbian or Albanian." We're not. We don't. But I like to say we have a connection to humanity. And we were introduced to a UN aid worker named Diane Brown, who had been working in Kosovo with the UN and had gone on to start her own children's charity there to help children in North Mitrovica. And when she kind of explained the situation, this kind of bizarre stasis where the societies, even after the war, still remained apart, where tensions still were great, where there was not a movement toward healing, but again, almost like a digging into the heels, we thought this was a really interesting place to explore. And in context of the polarization of American politics in 2000 and 2004, when talk was of red states and blue states, And the great heterogeneous American melting pot seemed to be splintering, and there was talk of a culture war. Well, turning our attention to a place that used to be a federalist, integrated society, but then had been torn apart, was an interesting place to explore the ramifications of what I call the politics of division.
How do you stop a hatred that survived for generations? How do you envision peace when all you remember is war? How do you rebuild a society that's been torn apart by the politics of hate?
You know, and even though the movie's about Kosovo, it really reaches out and hopefully speaks to kind of a broader human kind of dilemma of how to, you know, make peace, how to, you know, overcome the horrors or problems or troubles of the past and build a new future and move forward.
Here we have 505 gypsies dying of lead poisoning, and no one can find a solution for them.
We heard about Paul Polanski through a group called Refugees International, which had been working to raise awareness of the plight of the Roma in Kosovo. And Paul is an American writer who was writing books about Roma before the war broke out, and who took it upon himself to try to help the Roma after they were displaced. As we show in the movie, the entire Roma community in Mitrovica had their entire neighborhood burned down. Had their entire neighborhood burned down 6 years ago, and they were put in displaced persons camps that the UN built. Well, the camps were built on the waste and the tailings of lead mines, which are the engine of the economy of Mitrovica. And so the entire community of Roma, caught in the middle between the Serbs and the Albanians, were lead poisoned. Children were getting sick, were having, you know, brain damage. You know, families were getting, everybody was showing signs of lead poisoning. You know, the people who could get tested had lead levels off the charts. And we thought Paul was an amazing character because here's an American.
You got 20,000 NATO troops here, and you can't go to the next village to buy flour.
He's done whatever it takes to try to raise awareness for the Roma, and he was kind enough to bring us along with him as he went to visit the Roma. And without him, we couldn't have gotten entrance because the Roma were very tired of having news groups come from Europe and kind of like, you know, take their picture and make a little blurb about them and then have nothing happen. Paul, since he has a lot of goodwill there, we were able to follow him into the camp. But even then, you know, members of the Roma community, you know, were upset that we were there because they felt that we were exploiting them, and that was really hard for us as documentarians because we wanted to bring their plight to light, but we also felt responsibility to, you know, throughout our film, we try to be honest and we try to let the voice of the people speak, and we don't try to intervene so much. You know, we don't try to, like, you know, it's not a very cutty, it's not a very, you know, flashy movie. It's all about letting the people in the movie, the voiceless people of Kosovo, to a large extent, you know, have their say. And we show in the movie, we show that they're mad at us because we feel responsibility to let them have say their piece, and I think it's our responsibility as media makers to, you know, recognize that we do and can, or we do exploit in a way, even for the best intentions, we exploit the plight of people, whether it's, again, in Kosovo or whether it's in any kind of war-torn area, to make news which is then packaged and sold. There's nothing wrong with that, but there is, you know, a sense of responsibility and, you know, a little bit of guilt about that, and that's why we kind of left that aspect in the film.
The only way towards full reconciliation is to ask forgiveness from one another.
I don't want to be part of that country who committed genocide. 15,000 people were killed.
Because, you know, peacemaking is a slow, arduous process. and it gets no coverage in the media. And the commercial media has a reason why they don't do it, because it's not breaking news. But we felt a responsibility. We wanted to look beyond the superficial and look at a place where there were 20,000 NATO troops, where we had gone to war, and see, what were the ramifications of what we've done, for good and for bad.
During 500 years of Turkish rule, many Albanians converted to Islam, while most Serbs remained Christian.
Da je njima najveći interes da truju hrišćansku decu.
To get access to the people of Kosovo and to really tell the stories intimately and honestly, we relied on a couple of really amazing local producers. Behar Zogiani, an Albanian, is a really well-known journalist in Kosovo, and he did an amazing job in helping us find stories and getting us access to people who might, otherwise be a little reticent. And I can't say enough about his contribution to the film. And I think Behar is a courageous man. He knew that the kind of film we were making. He knew that there are a lot of people in Kosovo, a lot of Kosovo Albanians wouldn't like a balanced portrayal of the place. And he's never told us this himself, but we think he probably got some death threats after our screening there, because people they only want to see one side. They want to see it black and white. So Behar is just amazing. On the Serbian side, a young man in Serbia who works with the international community a lot, a gentleman named Jovica Milkovic, was an amazing resource there. He knew everybody in North Mitrovica, and he knew all the Serbs in Kosovo, and he, like Behar, he was able to put us in touch with the heartbeat of the Serb community there. And without his help, we couldn't have made the movie. And we fell in love with both these guys, Behar and Jovica, and they were both amazing assets to us. And unfortunately, they never met during the making of the movie, because there's a reticence for for Serbs especially, to kind of interact with Albanians, and two, it was very difficult. And so yeah, the whole time we were shooting, they never met. The only time they met was after we were done shooting, and we had to get a tape from the south, the only time they met was after we were done shooting. We had to get a DVD or something from the south to the north, and they met in the middle of the bridge, almost like a Cold War spy trade-off, and handed off a DVD. And we just hope that our film can help more people cross the bridge, and hopefully lead to ethnic tranquility and peace.
Po unë ndih vetën shumë të kënaqur, por pas 6 viteve sot me kaluar këtë turp.
The camera team is performing a documentation. You're gonna have to turn that thing off. Okay.
Our log line for the film is "Peace is for the brave," and that's because we found that we associate bravery and courage with war and going to battle. Well, the people that we found that were trying to live, put the past behind them, they were amazingly courageous. Women, a family who had lost 16 of their men, who had been kidnapped and later found to have been murdered in Serbs. An ethnically mixed couple who had spent 37 years living together and had children, despite all the ethnic, and kept their relationship going, kept their marriage going, despite all the ethnic violence that just enveloped them. These are people, who I think showed a lot of courage. And if we can embrace the courage it needs to kind of look forward, to look to the future and build a new future, and recognize what's happened in the past, but also build a future that's not predicated on the injustice of the past, but is predicated on, the concept of a new kind of, ethnically mixed and heterogeneous future, I think we'll all be better off.
Serbët dhe shqiptarët Mitrovic kanë jetuar fort kur një të keqes kena pas mes veti.
Luego nos empezaron a...
You could be